Well, Paul Adams, and about me, I guess originally came from Ohio, but I moved here the first time to Hays, Kansas in 1986, so I've been around, although I left for a 10-year period, or 7-year period anyway, about a 7-year period I left to go on and try another job and also work on my doctorate. But then I came back here in 96, and so since 96 this has been home, and I'm getting to that point in my life where I've lived in Hays almost as much as I lived any place. And with 4 children, 3 are Kansas, 2 of them were born here, and the other one was born in Topeka, and then 1 child when we were in Ohio. But so I consider myself, this is home, Hays is home, Hays is the community I grew up that I've actually grown up in as an adult, and so I value that greatly. My association with Hays, of course, is with the Fort Hays State University, where I work at, and there I've been a physics professor and teacher education professor, and currently serving as an interim dean of the College of Education and Technology. And it's been a great place to be and helped me get involved in the community. And volunteer-wise, I've been active in scouting all through all those years and all those associations here and doing it. So I guess I consider myself a part of the community, and the university as well. It's hard to separate being. It's all together. I mean, it's a vital part of our community, and I think that's one of the reasons that I'm interested in this and helping out with this, is that I've been here long enough that I feel it's time maybe to pay back what the community has done for me and my family by using my particular skill set and knowledge and abilities to help take care of what I think is something that's very important for my children, which is a quality education that can be had here in the Hays school system in USD 49.
And first question then, should the public's desire for neighborhood schools and choice of neighborhood schools, should that override the cost savings and educational benefits that the district administrators have told us are there?
Okay, and let me be sure I understand. It's the letting people still have choice, or
choice, and the idea of neighborhood schools, particularly elementary schools, but we kind of faced that not so long ago with middle schools too.
Yeah, it's I guess where I grew up at, we did have neighborhood schools, and I think that's a fantastic item to have if it makes sense, and it's something that we don't bear the brunt of costing the quality of education by doing that. And right now we do have choice. I know we sent 2 of our children went to Laughlin, 2 of them went to Wilson, and it was good for us to have a choice because, one, we had changed different places in community, we moved around, so one was a little closer than the other, but the other was that we just wanted to have some different experiences. And I think that's good to have the choice, maintain neighborhood schools, but we do have it set up where people can choose to change schools should they want to. So I think what we have is a reasonable thing. Now, in the case of financial exigencies, though, where we have to decide if we're going to reduce our teaching staff or reduce the things that we are committed to by our mission, which is a quality education every day for every student, well, if it begins to question that, that's actually our primary mission, that we have quality education for every student every day. That's what's stated out there about USD 49. And if that's the measure that we use, if that's what we say we should be doing, then the choice is great, and I like that. But if we have to choose to assure the highest quality possible, then that's a hard choice. It's never going to be pleasant. It's never going to be right with everybody. But our stated mission is quality education every day for every child in every classroom. And that's the measure that we have to make every decision against.
How would you categorize art and music and media? Should they be considered classes? Are they programs or extracurricular?
Well, to me, I believe that those are vital parts of a person's education. I mean, we're past the day, I guess, to say that, and this has to do with my experience and seeing where people are, is that, you know, it used to be that we could get by with the equivalent of 8th grade education where you're going to read and write, do mathematics, and, you know, and since I kind of oversee the schoolhouse, the old schoolhouse on campus, I've looked at those books, and, you know, we had problems where we were teaching how, you know, your math problems are all about morals and things. So, you know, we've had that as our core, but even in those days where we focused on the primary skills, we still had things that may seem silly now, but were important, were you know, penmanship or elocution, how to properly speak to the public, or how to express your ideas, or spelling bees. You know, that I think that those have been a part of it. Even singing and those items of that nature, I think are part of the essential piece that has been there, and I think it's essential that we keep those as core ideas. Now, will we be able to afford all the variety and all the choices we have? Probably not. But we don't know what our kids, you know, we're preparing kids for a future that we don't know. And if we get so tied to, like, well, we're going to get them through this, and we're going to get them, if we become so tied to, we're going to get them through and graduate them, but we aren't preparing them to graduate into a world where we should expect them to have some post-secondary education, whether that be a technical college, whether that be the university, or whether that be a 6-month special training program for a particular skill or trade you want to do. But without the idea of the arts and the choice of music and literature, I mean the choices that you had mentioned in your question, I feel that we shorten a person's chance to grow as an individual. And if it's quality, the quality is more than just the basics. I mean, now that being said, again, financial exigencies, if we have to begin to prune things down, then we have to look hard at which of those have the greatest promise to help them into the future. And that doesn't mean just the basics anymore. I mean, the basics are, you know, we're in a different world, a different society, that we have to look at those.
What about the idea of keeping some of those programs and paying to attend certain classes, whether it's science classes or music or art, and
Okay.
also the extracurricular, the pay to play?
Well, and I think if we categorize all those, is that as we do face these budget shortfalls that are coming on us, and you know, that's just the way, that's the nature of the beast. As we go back again, what do we need for quality? And that's going to be the hard decision. You know, I believe the superintendent and the principals, they should identify, because that's their job. They should say, here's what we feel is vital. The school board will decide on policy if they agree, don't agree, and then we'll enact or not enact and make sure those things happen. So first I would like to get our administrators' view, because they've got the pulse of where we're headed, often better than the school board. They're professionals, professional educators. Let's let them be the professionals they are. Now, what that may mean, though, is that should we have fees for things that we do, huge underwriting cost for some of the things, we probably should put in some fee-based structure. But only if we can assure that every student, that the fee-based structure is equitable to every student. You know, I've heard the debate about, well, those kids on free and reduced lunches, you know, maybe not. But, you know, I grew up, and, you know, I feel I've done very well in my career, but I was a free and reduced lunch child. And those sorts of things, and, you know, teachers helping out, or some scholarship money that came to help me and able to do things were important to me. And so I don't want to see any child be cut off because you don't know what they'll do. They can become an interim dean of a college of education, and that's a very important piece. So should there be some fees to pay to play? I think a sliding scale that may be appropriate if we have to go there. Should we do it for the academics that require a greater than average overage, whether that be industrial arts? I mean, we always hear art putting up there, but we have the whole technology sector where there's a lot of cost there too. So should we impose some fees? Only if we have to, and then it has to be equitable, because I would hate to think that someone like like myself, who is really, has great potential, but if we cut them off because of finances, we can't. And, but I think athletics is important. I mean, I wrestled in high school and played football and wrestled in college, so that was really important. And I'm not sure we could have been able to afford it. I'm not sure we would have been able to, so I'd hate to see again a kid cut off with that because it's vital. It may keep some children in school to graduation. So I'm saying we have to look at it, but if we have to institute it, we do. But we institute it in a way that doesn't cut any child out of those opportunities.
And speaking of cuts and looking at things, do we or will we need to make more cuts? And if so, have you thought about that? Do you have any ideas on that?
Well, at this point, I believe that as long as, well, at this point, and it's still early in the legislative process, we're still waiting on the April revenue, which is going to determine what happens in the future. But with the 1.5% allotment that Governor Brownback has imposed, I believe the school district can manage where we're at without any significant cuts. I mean, and what we'll lose are opportunity costs is what I believe will happen. And to me, an opportunity cost is like, oh, we could save a little money, or we could really capitalize on this if we spend a little money on that. But is it vital? No. But it's an opportunity that would be a shame to lose. We do have some retirements, and some of those definitely have to be replaced. I mean, there are some areas that we just can't teach. We don't rehire some people. But even with that, there is some realized cost savings of replacing people. I don't think freezing positions is a smart move, because once you start doing that, you lose your opportunity to hire the best teachers out there. I think we always want to keep that open. But we do have some what we call shrinkage, is what I will call it. Shrinkage in the budget, because we have some people that are long been here and done good service, and as we lose those people, I think we'll be okay. So that being said, at this point, depending on April revenues, which are still to come, I think we're okay to do at this point. Now, if we do have to make other cuts, I think then maybe we do need to talk about the pay-to-play options. I'm not sure at this point how many more cuts that we can do without, again, going back to that measure that we say, a quality education for every child. Where are we going to? We're going to run up against the wall eventually. You can only go so far. Now, should we look at course loads per teacher? And I think that's another step that I think that discussion the board had, not this current time, the last board meeting they had with that. That's probably a worthwhile thing to do, to see if we are underutilizing. If there's in my world, I talk about it as what are the credit hours per faculty members, what I may look at in my business. And I think that's a good metric here. A good measure as well here is like, well, how many students is that teacher teaching? And there is a really fantastic course, but we're only affecting 5 students or 10 or 15, and we may have to let that go at this time. Not let go of a teacher. I mean, that's the hardest thing, is you let people go, then you got to pay a lot more to bring them back. But I think we'll handle that. So I think that would be the next level cut, is first look and see where we may have too low of interest in something that's not a vital course, because I don't think it's a simple thing like, oh, too few students cut them out. Well, no, not if this is one that we need for students to achieve Regents, meet the Regents curriculum. We have a responsibility to give those kids the right to pursue that. So that's the first step. And the pay-to-play piece that you mentioned, or imposing a fee structure. Right now, we have some pretty heavy fees, and we go to that as an area of last resort. But those decisions, I think, will probably have to be made in April after the election, when we see exactly where the revenue is. And since oil prices have jumped up a little bit, maybe we'll be a little better off than what we think, and we won't see an additional allotment.
There's been talk recently on the board about long-range planning. Are you a proponent of long-range planning? And by long range, probably 5 years would be
Yeah.
a good measure.
Sure. I believe that every organization at a time frame of 3 to 5 years should sit down and do a long range, or to me a strategic planning process, which includes the long range plan. First you get your strategic plan. This is what we want to achieve and be, and then we implement what are our goals and what are our measures that we've achieved those. So I think that's a vital piece that must be done. And you know, every organization I've been on and boards that I have served on across the state, we have that at 3 to 5 years. I recently attended a strategic long-range planning for the science teachers in Missouri, where they're sitting down and outlining what they're going to do. But that gives you, if you know where you want to go, instead of being worried about, oh, we got this little problem, you can get so tied up in the little things that you don't make the right decisions for the long-range thing, whatever that may be. And so I think that is necessary. It has to happen. Because if I know where we have to get to here, where we want to get to, then maybe I have more clarity, you know, like the discussion of what schools we may close or what things we're going to cut. I have the clarity of vision to say, if we do this here, that's the impact. Whereas now we make some decisions, you know, we may have to come back and revisit that again and again, or we'll say we have the unexpected consequences that we can't achieve what we thought we could because of something we did here. Whereas if I have this out there, whatever it is out there, I can plan better and accordingly. So I guess the long answer, that's my long answer to a very short, yes, we should. And those are my reasons why we should.
Have you thought about any priorities that the school district should have in terms of long-range planning?
Well, I do think about that. Is that one, we should kind of look at where we want our curriculum to be. How do we turn it out that we have the best curriculum in the state? And because I think if as a school board, we've got to assure that we have the highest quality, that our kids are passing at the highest possible level on the state assessments. And eventually we're going to get state assessments, I keep saying that, state assessments that are fair, consistent, and aligned with our curriculum that the state has. And we're hopefully that'll be through legislature. We won't deal with that anymore. But that means that, to me, that's a high priority. And then if I know if these are going to set what we want kids to be able to do, for those kids to be successful, as we want them to be successful, we want them to be good citizens, both in Hayes or wherever they go, because to me that priority being highest then drives how do we make our financial decisions. And I don't think we can make our financial decisions unless we know what our end product is, because it's those decisions that will lead to that. So I think that's, to me, that's a high priority, and that's a long-term vision. Though we've stated in the book we haven't outlined, I think, exactly what we expect. Whether that's to assure higher graduation rates, though the state imposes certain of those, and federal funding imposes what we should have to be acceptable graduation rates, maybe we should work to be better. So I think that's part of it. I think the other piece is that we should also probably look at, we talk about state assessments to see if students are attaining the minimum knowledge for the minimum expectations. That's all standard students say, everybody will be at this level. That's great, but are we using the data that we have to know where we're truly strong, where we're weak? Because again, if you have a limited number of resources, where do you put those as a lever to make us strong across the board? And you know that's going to be a problem, because if I know where we're strong or weak, whatever it may be, it's a curriculum piece, or maybe it's continued professional development of our teachers to be the most effective, or we have efficiencies that we're missing. We should be looking at the data to make data-driven decision making. So I think that's a second high priority, is how do we put into place, because right now, out in the world, everybody's talking about big data and using big data to make analysis and decisions. Well, we should be doing that here. And, we've got resources in the community that can help us out. And I think if we start doing highest quality, that nobody can question that we're one of the best places in the state to send your kids. And We've shown improvement of efficiencies and appropriately leveraging what limited resources we have to be very effective. I think the benefit to us is that then if we become a place where people want to move to, I mean, career, job opportunities are very good in Hayes, and they'll be better if we can show that we have a really well-educated workforce. It may help in the shrinkage of the population. I mean, the worst thing that happens is people move out of here. Well, then we have school funding issues. But if people say, that's a good place to go, I want to go there because of the quality, we have the university as an attractor, we have the medical, we have the oil industry, we have Midwest Energy, we have lots of business sectors here, and they all need good workers and good workforce. And so I see that as a win. If we do that in the community, we may be able to help address some of our financial issues just by raising our population and our base, because we are a good place and we have good schools, which I think are the foundation of a community.
Where does upgrading facilities fit in there? We're hearing a lot about that.
Yeah, I think it's it's too bad that the working group that put together a plan for upgrading facilities, that plan got shelved. And I know it got shelved because of the finances and all the rest. I think it needs to be brought back out. We had a group of dedicated citizens who put a lot of time and effort and great consideration into what we think is best for our community and for our schools. So I think it's time to bring that back out and look at it and look for the ways to try to fund parts of that are reasonable. Now, I know we've got problems just keeping the doors open, but if you've got the building falls down around you, there's nothing to open up to. I mean, I have children who are involved in theater, and 12th Street Auditorium is, though it's been a working facility for a lot of years, I start looking at how we store things and what we've got there, I'm a little concerned. I mean, and we have one of the best theater programs out there, and I think that's great. And I was just amazed at how many kids were involved. I mean, you've got all your kids, you've got a community, you've got the people who are going to be living and working together here for the next 40 or 50 years, the rest of their lives. Many will stay. And so we deserve to recognize those things by upgrading our facilities where it makes sense. So I think it should be moved. I think we should take the plan that's been developed, look at it again, and begin to target those things in the community to say, we really think we should fund this because we could turn those. I think part of it is that it enhances the quality of the program. And the other piece is that if we choose wisely, they become a resource for the community as a whole. Though we say it's for the schools, but an improved theater area or improved sports facility, it opens up other things for us to consider that may be revenue neutral, but at least it may help cover the cost of operations and keeping those going. So I don't see it as a money sink. I see it at least level or a potential for the community is becoming a central portion where you want to go and do things.
Would you support a bond issue?
Yes, I would. I know people don't want to hear no taxes, but to me, this is our community. It's our home, and if people wouldn't flinch on, they say, oh, I got to fix my kitchen. I want to remodel my kitchen. I want to make, people are my bathroom. And remodel your bathroom, remodel your kitchen, you increase the value of your home. This is our home. This is our community. So if that means we remodel our schools or redo our schools, we increase the value of our home. And so I think it's a little bit to say, yeah, it's going to cost me more taxes, but you know what? You wouldn't flinch. It was for yourself. And I view this as for all of us, for all of it. Whether you give your time, your talent, or your treasure, we owe something back to the community where we live, where we benefit, and I think a bond issue is one of those places where, in the end, we will all benefit from it, and I really believe we should all support it.
Union negotiations have been in the news lately.
Sure.
At the state level, and also the local board has changed. Now, this year they're talking about the whole board being involved.
Right.
Thoughts on that?
Well, I'll give some thoughts, but I will have to say up front, because my wife is an employee of the school district, that I will have to recuse myself from being involved in any of that. So I want to be honest about that part there, just say, hey, I can't do it. But now, in terms of what I think what Representative Bolger, it's nice to say with a Hayes High person, there's a Hayes High person who, though she worked there, she made good, and so we got to say that, and many of her students probably have done very well. But I think that her effort to take a bill that I thought was rather unfair and unlimiting to all parties, really, to where she got it at whereas the mandatory issues and then the optional issues. I think that that's good, and I hope that gets through all the way through that. So I think that's a good. I think that's at least a good move, because whether I agree or disagree with individual issues, I probably because of the situation, because of I need to recuse myself from that, I don't want to address those, because I can't even vote on them, so I don't want to influence it. But I will say that I think that, in fairness, any worker needs to be, anybody that's a worker needs to have somebody to represent their issues that come to them. Likewise, the employer needs to have their representation as well. So a full board doing it, less those that can't do it for whatever reasons, that might be a little heavy, and maybe it should be a few individuals, but I'm not opposed to it. Not opposed to it. Yeah.
And since you brought up the fact that your wife is a USD 489 staff member, will that cause you any conflict of interest as a board member?
Well, that's a good question, and I get it often. And I don't believe it will. Though we're married, all that, we're not, as most people would say in a marriage, you don't necessarily always agree with your spouse. So you may love that individual, and but in terms of independent thought and thinking, I make my own decisions. I stand on my own, and as we have talked privately about some of the things that we're hearing, seeing the school board, I said, well, I think that's probably a good thing. Oh, no. I said, no, it's where I'm at. Or I'll say, no, you're not thinking of the big picture. You've got to look at that. So I believe that, what will happen there is I'll say, probably, and when she sees it or reads this, she may not like it, is I'll say, if you got an opinion, send it to this email address so that I can look at it and weigh it. So we have separated it. And part of that, we've learned to do that because at this point she's a department chair in the science and is interim dean, that we're each dealing with issues that are of high confidentiality. And so we have a border where there's just things we can't talk about and don't exchange, we just can't because of confidentiality. Whether it's concerned she may have related to her position or I do, we don't. And we do think independently. So, though it looks like, whatever people may think, it will. We've had this discussion initially when I looked at trying to fill the vacancy, and now. So I believe I'll be fair and balanced in looking at the data, because I'm driven by data. And I know some of the decisions people have heartstrings with it, but if the data and the evidence supports a certain view, then that's what we'll go with, because by training, I was trained initially as a scientist, and so everything has to be based upon evidence or we don't act. And that's part of the reason I said we need to look how we better mine our data sources to make the best decisions.
Okay, thank you. It's time to renew the technology contract, and there's a lot of discussion on that at the board level. Is that an area that we can save money in?
We've already decided to apparently abandon laptops, which I won't address that. That decision's been made, and I had an opinion there, but I'm not going to say it. But with the kids, I think, yes, we do need to invest in technology for the students. I've just been a whirlwind tour. I've been in different meetings, different places, and it's not unusual to see people with 2 or 3 different pieces of technology on them all the time and using it in some way. And it's not just texting, maybe, or Twittering, or whatever it may be. But those are important processes too. I shouldn't deny it. Every meeting you go to, they're Twittering, but that's part of the process, sending your tweets, and I say it's part of the process because it's the way we communicate and learn. So I believe we have to educate, though we're always going to be behind the curve, we need to provide students with the basis to function in this world where there's technology is ubiquitous. It doesn't matter where you go, what you do, it's going to be there. But doing it effectively, doing it in a way that you can is very important. The other piece is that if we're, as the district begins to look at open education resources as one of the cost savings, and I think that potentially could be a good, but it's an opportunity cost. We're not going to buy books, but we're going to invest in OER, open education resources. But if I'm going to invest in open education resources, I have to put every student on the same footing, which means the opportunity cost is we won't buy texts, we're going to develop this OER, but it's not cost-free. The cost is that I have to be sure every child has the basic technology they need. And so I guess that was maybe a question, actually an answer to the question otherwise is where should we invest? So to me, we have to do it. If we're going to, and we'll probably save some money if we look at it as an opportunity cost, though it's a capital outlay to buy these, buy the laptop, or buy the tablet, since that seems to be where we're headed at this point. Whatever, that may be a capital outlay or it's a rental fee, however we decide to do it, it's associated to me in replacing, can be associated with replacing textbooks that cost a lot of money. So we can't get rid of it no matter what. And the other piece that I'll add is that if we do move towards the open education resources, then there's a fantastic number of applications or data sources or things that we can bring in that we can't in any other way. And for a teacher to just let the kids do whatever they want, it'd be a nightmare in the classroom. But if we can have a common ground, a common piece, we'll do it. And if the kids do use it to do some other things, well, that's okay. Most people do other things. And I think for myself, I'll usually carry 3 or 4 devices around that I use for different aspects of my job for different things. And so having multiple platforms to learn is important. But if we're going to invest in one, then we do it all the way across the board.
So are you an advocate of one-to-one?
I am. I believe that it's important, and I say that just because of my own day job. Every student I see has something they use, whether it's a tablet. Most of them have laptops. Laptops are still very functional devices, but tablets or smartphones, it doesn't matter. Everybody has something they're using, a technology they have. And so one-to-one, they couldn't, to be honest with you, they would not do very well at the university unless they had the technology and they used it. Every student should have it. So yes, clearly one-to-one is what I believe in. And I think we can do very well and actually get a cost savings if you balance against other opportunity costs that we may have.
Common Core, also known as College and Career Ready Standards. That's back in the legislature again this year, looking at whether or not to scrap it and start all over.
I guess.
What's your thoughts?
Well, first, and I guess I should be forthright on this, is that the Common Career Ready Standards in Science, the Next Generation Science Standards, I was one of the co-chairs to review and give feedback, and eventually I was the lead author on writing the proposal that went to KSDE to accept Next Generation Science Standards. So without a doubt, I have to say that because I've invested the time and looked at them and read them, and this is just not Common Core, because it's College Career Ready Standards, period. But I can speak particularly to the science one. But I've been involved and looked at it, and I had a study conducted, and those standards are, the science standards are Kansas standards. We had 2 boxes full of paper of comments from Kansas citizens. And we did an analysis. I did the analysis actually, and we were able to trace where Kansas citizens commented on those standards. And those standards in the end reflected the input of Kansas citizens. So I view, the Next Generation Science Standards particularly, as they are our standards. And Kansas played a significant and vital role in adopting those. So the fact that we're saying that those sorts of things are nonsense is a slap to ourselves because we helped get them there. Now, that's the science standards, and I know the Common Core, the Kansas College and Career Ready Standards in Mathematics and English Language Arts predate the adoption of next generation science standards. But those science standards are based in part on the standards that are in the Common Core. Because the Common Core and the science standards, but the whole college career ready standards are just that. These are standards that don't ask, like how many planets are there in the solar system, That's a Google fact. We've got technology, kids can look up all these facts. But it's not the same as saying, construct a model to explain how a field works on a moving particle. That's actually an elementary grade standard. And I would be hard-pressed to find people out in the street who could probably do that. But we expect elementary kids to do it, and they can. I've watched them. I do teacher workshops. This is my area, one of my areas of expertise. So, but on that part, they construct their understanding. They show they know, and they use their ability. They use the technology to show their understanding, whether it's to develop a model or to build a paper or whatever it is. But on that, they have to use mathematical understanding at a much higher level than we've ever expected. And they have to use their English and language arts to express their ideas. All that expectation in the science is predicated on everything that they're learning in the Common Core. So we have a rare opportunity where we have things coming together, and if we pull one part out, we have put our students behind a generation. That's one of the reasons they call them next generation science standards. It's based on 20 years of research, and having been involved in the first go-round, I was a commenter then, and being intimately involved this go-round, we have really moved forward. So if you eliminate that, we have done our kids a disservice because they aren't learning how to think. They may be able to answer the question, which is the old school, but that's not what we need today. We need kids who are thinkers, who are ready to go into the workforce and be positive contributors and not just standing around waiting for somebody to tell them, let's think, let's do it. And anyway, so I guess my answer is pretty clear. The answer is we don't want to do it to ourselves because we have something that can be amazingly outstanding and exciting. To me, it's exciting if we can embrace what it really means, and to keep fighting against it is, in some ways, it's disappointing because Kansas had a big role in it, and that's a shame that we forget that that's the facts, that's the truth, and that's based on my research. So I know.
That's the last of my questions. Is there anything you'd like to add that we didn't cover that you feel is important?
Let me think about that for a second.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess, well, maybe what I'd like to add is that though I may be a university professor and my wife may be a teacher in the schools, is that at the end of the day, I'm a citizen of Hayes, and I'm a taxpayer, and I really believe that it's the time in my career to be part of to use my time, my talent, and my skills to help USD 49, help us achieve that vision that we have stated as our mission. And I believe that I can do that. And at the bottom root of it, though, is that I am a citizen of the community, and as a citizen, I'm running to represent what I think is best for our community. I'm not representing any other particular belief, just trying to take what, as a community, we've said we value and try to be sure that we can move forward and achieve that quality education for every student.
Thank you very much.